welcome to another Demis Helen tutorial. This video is about kind of the spatial awareness of the track, how to make it sound so wide, and this particular track has only got 3 elements, but it sounds quite huge in itself before any kind of extras are added and pad synths and stuff. These are just 3 leads, 2 of which are the same but slightly differently processed. So let's listen to the 3 synths in question. So this is the kind of the supportive chord section. This is the main melody. And then the main melody but at the top end, but with some distortion. So you'll see how that plays a huge role when I put it all together. Now if I take away this top kind of distorted melody, you lose all that clarity in the top. And there's 2 reasons why I put it there. The first is to support and add a little bit more sparkle to it, and at the same time this track is going through a Kickstarter, i.e. sidechain compression, and it's been heavily manipulated by that. So you're losing some of the detail in that top melody, so to support it I've added that in without any kickstart to bring back that sparkle and keep that clarity going. But it's very, very subtle. Now the reason that I've only used 3 synths is because it sounds quite epically huge. I'm probably going to add a little bit of a kind of synth pad in there just to support it and butter it up a little bit, but if you listen to this synth here, it's not actually got any of the inserts on, and the reason for that is to show you how I've kind of added that into the mix. So as it sounds, and then with inserts, so I've essentially shoved it in the back of the mix, but give it its own space in the mix, so it's not clashing with the main melody, but it's supporting the kind of the rhythm of the track. If you actually mute this track, you can hear how much work it's actually doing, and it blends in with the track, and that's really what it needs to do. I don't want it to sound like I've got 3 and 4 synths in there. I need it to all sound like one sound. So let's have a look at what has happened in the process. So the first thing it does is it goes through Pro Q2, and I'm just cutting off up to 161 Hz. It's not a magic frequency, it's just where it sounds right. And this is a reference point here for where there's a gap in the melody for this one here. So if we actually look at the lead there, it's happening here and here, but we've got this kind of U-shaped dip there, which I've actually made with the EQ earlier in the processing, but I thought let's try and boost it in that area and just see what kind of result we get, and as it turned out it didn't work, not how I hoped anyway. Secondly, let's just get that back on, put a bit of a reverb on it. I could have gone into massive and added their reverb in there and made it quite huge, but then that would have give it the same tone as the main melody, so I thought, oh, let's get it out of there and use some outboard processing there for it. So all I've done is loaded the Roomworks and just turn up the reverb, turn the pre-delay down, turn the reverb time up and the size up to kind of personal preference, and then I turn up the highs on the level, and then your mix is at 40, which is where it kind of starts. So you can hear how that's adding a bit of space into it, it's giving it a room. Then it goes into this EQ here. You can see I've added a bit of a side channel, I forgot what you call it, mid and side onto there, a bit of process on there just to pull it away from the centre. So if we just listen to that, I'm taking that kind of haunting sound, I'm taking that mid-rangey bit away from the centre and just pushing it out a little bit. Boosting the frequency here, which is doubling up on top of the original synth. So here, this reference point, because you can see it's quite prominent there. So I've doubled it up there, cut it a little bit there because it didn't sound right, and it does push it back in the mix very well. and then a bit more cut off. So if we just listen to that without it, it jumps right back into then, it's like it shrinks in on itself and expanded. And then it goes through the compressor. I've done a 2:1 ratio, it's just a good starting point. I've put it onto classic, so it'll apply to all kind of compression, really, all compressors, whatever you might choose to use. I've done a bit of a slower attack, obviously not too slow, and then I've just done kind of the release way out of the way, so it's not coming back up volume wise too quickly, and then threshold to taste. So if we take that away, this is bringing out kind of the reverb and the delay out of it. And on. So you're bringing out that detail. And then finally, it goes to a final process where I just boost to taste, where it sounds good audibly, it's not a magic frequency, and just cut a little bit more out of this kind of 800 Hz range here. So the final result is... it nearly sounds like the same thing, it's the same two synths. Take this away, or take this away. They sound like two different synths on their own, but with the right processing they do work together well. Moving on to this one, this is the main melody. The secret to this melody is, let's just go to it here, is the sheer amount of delay that's going through. The damp is fully up, feedback's quite high, and then the reverb, colour all the way up, density all the way up, the size is quite far up on the level, and then it's not too wet, but it's got enough in there. If we just take that away, so that really does give it space and its clarity. And then to go through it, let's just have a quick look. Now I've cut these frequencies out because these are the resonant frequencies that I didn't want in the sound, if you know what I mean, those ones. And to identify them, usually you can see the peaks there, or you can create a node here, put the Q to really sharp, and then look for the really horrible sharp piercing resonance frequencies, like that one. You'd cut it there, but it's not present all the time. It's nowhere near as bad as that one. So that's how I'd search for those, and that's where I've cut it there. So let's just drag it back down. And then we've got Kickstarter, which is just giving it a bit of sidechain. Then it goes through the sausage fattener just to give it a little bit of harmonic kind of colour to the sound. So let's just listen to it without it. And on. It just beefs up that lower end and the mid-range a little bit more. Doesn't add any sparkle, just beefens it up. Then it goes into the compressor, and this is where the clarity and detail come out, but also keeping it seriously under control. So I've used bus style, and we've used a 3.6 to 1 ratio. It's just where it sounded good at the time. No particular reason on that. I actually don't know why it's there. It could work on a 2 to 1 with a bit more compression. Quite a slow attack and quite a fast release to get all those little bits of detail in between from the delay. Let's take that away. You lose all that kind of low end detail that's not pulling through on the sound. And finally it goes through another instance of Pro Q, and you can see I've just taken out some other frequencies there. They're just reference points, those for my own idea, but I've got rid of that section because when I tested it on some headphones, that really came through on those headphones. It was actually some Bluedio turbines, and it was really prominent because they're quite heavy on the low end. So I got rid of that frequency and it came through quite nice. So if we listen to it without this on, you can hear that lower frequency resonating through the mix, and then it's removed and it makes it really clean, but without taking too much detail away. And finally, this is exactly the same sound, but it's going through FabFilter Saturn, and I've picked the Buzz Bomb 0 or Buzz Bomb O preset. Slight tweaks probably here and there, I can't actually remember doing this bit. And then to keep it under control, I've dragged the level down here using this rather than using the fader on here. You've got better control and it avoids any kind of clipping from the actual plugin itself. And then just a little bit of compression just to kind of tone it down a bit more. But I've also used the gain here on the wet and dry knob just to bring it down to the level I want. And we bypass this, just cut out some key frequencies there that were really cutting through a bit too harsh. And that is your 3 sounds. That's how I space things. Other people might do it differently to me, but that is how I space it in the mix, and as you can hear, it works quite well. If we take them away, you can hear the work that has gone into that. Initially it does sound like you've lost too much detail, but when you hear the track in context you realise it has to be like that. So let's just listen to how it sounds. Right, let's take it back and remove the inserts off the main melody. So let's go back to the mixer and remove the inserts. And that works quite nicely all the way through the track, even when it's fully up top, and even when it's even lower. And then when I change it into a different sound, you can hear all the detail pop out with the compression, and it just sounds nice. So that is how I put things in kind of the stereo field. It's all by ear. There are various other plugins that you can use, stereo widening tools, and you can use kind of surround panning tools, whatever works for you. There are some great plugins from Waves that I suggest getting, Stereo Image I think it's called, and let's have a look, it's under Special and Panner. Stereo Enhancer, no, there, the S1 Shuffle Stereo, that's quite good for moving things in and out of the field, putting them in place, and Center Stereo there, they're quite good. But that is how I do it. I mainly try to do it with EQ, so I'm actually shaping the sound to how I want, and that is where you get your sound from. That's kind of your trademark. So thank you for watching this tutorial. If you liked it, give us a like and leave us a comment, tell me what you think, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video.